So the CDC reports, like I found from a study, CDC, also known as the Control Disease Center, reports that in 2000, 19% of non-Hispanic blacks and 20% of Mexican Americans, compared with 11% of non-Hispanic white children, were obese. So like, the study concluded that the prevalence of childhood obesity in African Americans and Mexican Americans exceed other ethnic groups. Oh yeah, so as I said before, like neighborhoods with like higher financial status, they tend to buy like more energy, like higher financial status. They buy more like nutrient dense foods. So yeah, so you know what I said before. And keep going. Okay, so like in our research, we're like doing a cross-sectional study. A cross-sectional study is a study that examines the relationship between a disease and the exposures among individuals within a defined population in a point of time. So in our case, we're trying to find out, so our question is, what is the relationship between obesity and bad food choices? And advantages include like it's very inexpensive and efficient. And the disadvantages is that it's biased and the temporal sequence is not found. So that means that like since the disease and exposure is being measured at the same time, you can't really tell if the exposure or the disease came first. Our objective is to compare the quality of fruits and vegetables in the farmers markets of Manhattan, Brooklyn, and Bronx. The second one is to compare the quality of fruits and vegetables in the supermarkets of the 3 boroughs.
Okay, so our hypothesis was that the quality, the ripeness, and the appearance of the produce found in Manhattan's supermarkets and farmers markets would be superior to those in Brooklyn and Bronx. And our null hypothesis would be that there is no association, that they're all the same relatively, or our alternate hypothesis is that there is an association, and what we think is true. Our materials, we use measuring tape. We use the data sheets that you saw earlier with group 1. We use the scale, the ripeness sheet, and appearance sheet, and this is what it looked like. We were given certain fruits, and so the advantages of a green market are that they're healthy, they're local, and they're fresh. The disadvantages are that they're not available throughout every season. You're not going to see them around in the winter time. There's a lack of variety. They're sometimes costly, and they're open only certain times of the week. They're not abundant, and some produce are not organic. Okay, so what we did was we gathered in different groups, and starting in July, we went to the green market, supermarkets, and some corner stores within a 3 to 4 block radius of each other in the 3 boroughs. But what we focused on, we would go to a certain green market, and then from there we would look for the supermarkets that are in the area. After that, we would record the circumference, the length, weight, and of the produce that we measured, and we put it in the data sheets, put it on Microsoft Excel charts.
Okay, so this was on Group 1's PowerPoint, and I guess they explained this enough, but okay. All right. So we for statistics, we used a t-test, and the t-test it is used to determine whether there's a significant difference between 2 groups of their average, and the ANOVA was a test that was used that's used for when we have more than 3 groups and their means, and HO hypothesis is the null hypothesis, and HA stands for the alternative hypothesis. And for t-test, it was denoted as t-stat, and for ANOVA, it was denoted as f-stat.
Alright, so for the results, we compared the ripeness of fruits and vegetables in farmers markets and supermarkets. In our x-axis, we have the 3 boroughs that we went to, which blue is Manhattan, red, which is Brooklyn, and green, which is Bronx. In our y-axis, we have a scale from 1 to 7. 1, which was okay, and 7, which was bad. For the farmers markets, for our farmers markets, we had Manhattan, which was the best, then Brooklyn, and then Bronx. For the supermarkets, we had Manhattan as the best, then Bronx, and lastly Brooklyn. For our results for appearance, in farmers markets and supermarkets, we compared the quality of fruits and vegetables. In the y-axis, the scale was from 1 to 7, 1 which was the worst, and 7 which was the best. Manhattan which was the best, and Brooklyn and Bronx were close to were the same. For the supermarket, Bronx was the best, then Manhattan, and then Brooklyn.
And the variability you can see in our standard deviation, the greater it is, the less likely that our data will be significant. So in our results afterward, what we saw was that in our comparisons between Manhattan and Brooklyn, there was a p-value of 0.008. In Manhattan and Bronx, there was 0.001. And when we compared Brooklyn and Bronx, there was 0.33. And what you need to know is that if the p-value is greater than 0.05, the results are insignificant. So in this case, in comparing Brooklyn and Bronx, the results are insignificant because our p-value is 0.33, which is greater than 0.05. Also, in our supermarkets, when we compared Manhattan and Brooklyn, Manhattan and Bronx, and Brooklyn and Bronx. And in this case, if the p-value is less than 0.05, the results are significant. So in comparing Manhattan and Brooklyn, the results were significant. Yes? Do we take questions now?
Let them finish and then you can ask the questions.
Okay. In conclusion, our results support the null hypothesis that we said before. We found that no association seen in the appearance of fruit and vegetables in farmer markets and supermarkets in different boroughs. However, statistically significant difference was seen in the mean value for ripeness of fruit and vegetables. The quality of fruit and vegetable with respect to ripeness for farmer market and supermarket in Manhattan was much more superior when compared to the quality observed in Brooklyn and Bronx. No difference was seen in the mean value for ripeness between Brooklyn and Bronx. After we drew the conclusion, we realized that there are several limitations that lead to bias in our research. When we are doing our fieldwork, some corner store and supermarket did not let us measure their produce, which lead to non-responsive bias. But most of the green market owners allow us to measure their produce, which lead to volunteer bias. Not responsive and volunteer bias are all belong to selection bias. In informational bias, our conditional satisfy the measuring bias. 3 of our group members
measure the same kind of fruit, which lead a different result. Also, we are inexperienced in measuring vegetable and fruit, so we only can try our best to measure the fruit and vegetable as accurate as possible. Due to the limited time, our group was not able to visit the market in Staten Island and Queens. However, when we found the green market in the neighborhood, but we couldn't find the corner store from a 3 or 4 block radius. From our knowledge, a corner store always have junk food such as chips and soda, but most of the corner store did not have fruit and vegetables.
Okay, for our future work, we hope to compare areas with access to healthcare and study how it affects the people's lifestyles. We also hope to measure other variables such as junk food, variety, sanitation, amount of fertilizer, and the size of the actual fruit versus size of the normal size. And we also want to research how shipping produce affects the amount of nutrition that remains in the produce. Okay, implications that one cannot judge a fruit or vegetable's healthiness based on their appearance or ripeness. Our study will also affect how the society views produce in the future. Okay, we'd like to acknowledge the Nutrition and Obesity Program, Ms. Anuradha Marwa, Mr. Scott White, Dr. Sack, Harlem Children's Society, and the audience.
And group 1 and group 2.
Yeah.
Any questions?
You had reference p-value a lot. What does it mean?
Hold on. Which one was it? Your reference?
P-value.
My favorite?
You just use the
Oh.
term.
You want to explain p-value?
So p-value kind of like it's like a percentage of measuring how like significant or insignificant the data.
Is there a formula? Or
Formula?
is it just like, I don't know, I saw, is it like an application or something?
Okay, p-value is usually when you do statistics, you have different kind of statistical procedures. Like they spoke about the p-statistic, the f-statistic. So once you get a figure, that is when you have a different table of a p-stat and f-stat, and that is where you get this value from. Now, significance value is what p-value is. The full form is probability value. So that basically means if I tell you my p-value is 0.05, so that means that 5% of the time, the probability that I got my results by chance is just less than 5%. Okay, and we need to avoid chance or errors in our research. So that is why researchers use this p-value. Now 0.05 is one significance level. It can also be 0.10. Some researchers could also use the p-value of 0.001, which is the best p-value. And also I would like to make one comment. If you could go back to the charts. And this is not only for the nutrition group, but for all the groups. When we are presenting a research, the graph, your results for the standard deviation and mean. For any time whenever we present a research, sometimes the research is not over. So that's why we just do some preliminary analysis like calculating the mean and standard deviation and presenting it. But it's very important that when you're presenting the results, like some of them mentioned that, could you go back to the graph, bar graph? Yeah, some of them mentioned that since this is less, the result, this market is better than the other one. No, in any kind of descriptive analysis, using a mean or standard deviation, you can never make conclusions. I cannot say from this graph that the market is the green market in Manhattan is much better than the green market in Brooklyn just because the graph is low and the mean is low. No. Descriptive statistics is what? When you're reading a research article, the first table always tells you the age of your people, the gender in the sample, right? So that is what it is. So you can't, if you say that this is best than this, that is a wrong way to explain the chart. So test your conclusion is the other part when you use the X-tag or other kind of hypothesis testing procedures and p-value. Was it clear or was it too much for one question? Okay. Yeah.
Earlier when you said the products, availability, price,
Yeah.
all that stuff, and all those facts, I don't know, like they said, where did you get the information, or did you get that from your research? Or?
We got that from our research, wasn't it?
When we explained, I think, about the accessibility, cost and all,
that's
it's
from our
mainly
research.
from the background information. If you also go to the usda.gov website and also to the CDC website, that is where you get all the information. So that is more of public health research information, not a real experimental scientific information.
And what is the difference between what they did from group one? Because I couldn't catch the difference because they did the brightness.
Right. So in group one, what they did was, if you saw, they compared the farmers market and supermarket in one borough. Like in Manhattan, they compared the farmers and supermarket. Then they went to Bronx, they compared the farmers market and supermarket. In there, they used the same data, but what they did is they just compared the farmers market in 3 boroughs. So in research 1, they were comparing within one borough, and in research 2, they were comparing all the 3 boroughs.
Were you able to visit all the farmers markets and supermarkets in each borough?
We provide, I think, Manhattan.
We just couldn't do Staten Island, and we did Queens, but we just didn't have a lot from there because most of the green markets are open on weekends, not weekdays, and we did our research on weekdays.
Did you decide like which farmers markets and supermarkets to go to? Was it like was it close to the train station, go there first? Or?
No, it was Miss Anuradha would give us. Remember how in group 1 they showed you a map? So Miss Anuradha told us about which location to go, depending on which group you're in, and then depending on when the green market opens, and depending on so that's, and then we just went, like, we would meet up and like we didn't. We don't know if the area is close to the train station or not. If we go, we find the area.
It wasn't just us 7 that went to all the farmers markets. It was all the 3 groups, and then we put all our data together.
Yeah,
And
and
then
then
different
one
boroughs.
research we divided into 3 hypotheses. And in this research, we also had another survey, obesity survey, measuring the BMI and everything. So that's what third group is going to be different from the first 2 things, but they're going to present next week, so you will see more about that.
Did they go with it? Did you like buy something in the States?
no.
We didn't have funds for that to sponsor the, but usually that would again be an individual judgment, and only professionals would do the sensitivity test when you get it. And I agree, someone made a point that why don't you measure the vitamin C content and all, and I think just with appearance and brightness, just with an observational study, you can't make big conclusions about quality, and that is needed, definitely. Because imagine, like, if I go to a farmer's market, the